Saving more money feels like the responsible choice. For decades, it has been presented as the foundation of financial stability. Build an emergency fund, increase your savings rate, avoid risk, and everything else will fall into place. For many people, this approach feels safe, disciplined, and rational. Yet, for a large portion of savers, the outcome is the opposite of what they expect. Here is the core problem. Saving more by itself does not build wealth, and in many cases, it actively prevents it. Most households that rely primarily on saving end up working longer, feeling financially anxious and struggling to keep up with rising costs, despite years of doing the right thing. Consider a simple scenario. A household saves $500 per month in a traditional savings account, earning 1% annually. After 10 years, they have contributed $60,000 and earned roughly $3,100 in interest. On paper, that looks like progress. But during that same decade, average inflation has reduced the purchasing power of that money by approximately 25–30%. In real terms, a significant portion of their effort has simply been erased. This is where most people misunderstand the situation. They assume the problem is that they are not saving enough, when the real issue is what saving alone cannot do. Saving is a defensive action. It preserves money in nominal terms, but it does not grow purchasing power. When living costs rise faster than the return on savings, and historically, they almost always do, savers fall behind even while their account balance increases. The number goes up, but the value goes down. Many people believe they are financially disciplined because they delay spending and build cash reserves. What they overlook is that this discipline often locks them into a low-growth financial structure. Their money remains idle while inflation, housing costs, healthcare, and education expenses steadily rise. Over time, the gap between effort and outcome widens. The consequences are not immediate, which makes the trap hard to detect. In the first few years, saving feels reassuring. The account balance grows, emergencies feel manageable, and risk is avoided. But after 10, 15, or 20 years, the reality becomes clear. The saver has accumulated capital, but not financial independence. The money exists, yet it does not generate meaningful income or protection against long-term cost increases. This is why many long-term savers reach midlife with six-figure balances and still feel financially insecure. Their savings are too large to feel insignificant, but too unproductive to change their situation. At that point, time, not discipline, becomes the limiting factor. The saver's trap is not caused by laziness or poor habits. It is caused by a system that rewards caution emotionally but penalizes it financially. People are taught to avoid risk without being shown the cost of avoiding growth. At this stage, it is important to be clear. This is not about spending recklessly or eliminating savings entirely. The issue is that saving has been treated as a complete strategy when it is only a component. Understanding why saving more can keep you poor requires looking deeper at how income, behavior, and financial structure interact over time. That is where the real explanation begins. To understand why the saver's trap exists, you have to look beyond individual discipline and examine the structure most people operate within. The issue is not a lack of effort. It is the combination of income design, behavioral patterns, and the absence of a coherent financial system. For most households, income comes from a single source, labor. A salary or hourly wage is exchanged for time. Saving, in this context, becomes the default strategy because it feels like the only available lever. Spend less than you earn, set money aside, repeat. The problem is that this structure has a hard ceiling. Income is limited by time, and savings are limited by surplus. Once expenses rise, the system tightens. At the same time, human behavior reinforces this structure. Saving provides immediate psychological relief. Seeing a balance grow creates a sense of progress, even when that progress is purely nominal. This feedback loop encourages people to double down on saving instead of questioning whether the strategy itself is sufficient. The absence of visible loss hides the long-term damage. Consider a practical example. Person A earns $70,000 per year and saves aggressively, putting aside 20% of income into a savings account. After taxes and living costs, this requires constant restraint. Over 15 years, Person A saves roughly $210,000. The account balance looks impressive. However, adjusted for inflation, the real value of that money is closer to $150,000. Meanwhile, housing costs, insurance, and healthcare have increased faster than wages. Despite strong discipline, Person A is still dependent on continued work. Now compare this to Person B, who saves least initially but redirects part of that surplus into productive assets over time. The key difference is not intelligence or risk tolerance, but structure. Person B's system allows capital to work independently of labor. Person A's does not. Standard financial advice often fails here because it treats saving as an end goal rather than a transition phase. Advice like build a bigger emergency fund or increase your savings rate addresses short-term stability, not long-term viability. These recommendations are not wrong, but they are incomplete. They do not explain what happens after the emergency fund is built or how money should function over decades. Another common recommendation is to wait until income increases before taking further steps. This delays action and reinforces the trap. Higher income often leads to higher fixed costs, larger homes, car payments, lifestyle inflation, leaving the saver in the same position, just at a higher scale. The structure remains unchanged. The deeper issue is the lack of a defined system for capital allocation. Saving answers only one question: how do I avoid immediate financial stress? It does not answer, how does my money protect my future purchasing power? Or how does this capital reduce my dependence on income over time? Without a system that connects income, savings, and growth, people default to what feels safest. That safety is temporary. Over long periods, it becomes fragile. The saver's trap persists because it is quiet. There is no dramatic failure, no sudden collapse. There is just a slow realization that years of effort did not produce the freedom or security that was promised. Understanding this mechanism is critical because the real damage is not visible until time has already passed. In the next part, we will identify the specific mistakes that keep people locked in this pattern and what those mistakes cost over 5, 10, and 20 years. Once the saver's trap is understood structurally, the next step is to identify the specific mistakes that keep people locked inside it. These mistakes are common, widely encouraged, and rarely questioned. They are not caused by low income or irresponsibility. They are caused by decisions that feel safe in the short term but compound negatively over time. Mistake 1: treating saving as a complete strategy. The most fundamental error is believing that saving alone is enough. Saving preserves money, but it does not increase purchasing power meaningfully over long periods. When saving becomes the final destination instead of a temporary phase, capital remains idle. Consequence: after 5 years, a growing balance but no structural change. After 10 years, noticeable gap between savings growth and rising living costs. After 20 years, significant capital accumulated but still full dependence on income. For example, saving $500 per month for 20 years at 1% interest results in roughly $132,000. Adjusted for inflation, the real value may be closer to $90,000. The effort was consistent, but the outcome is weak. Mistake 2: overestimating safety and underestimating inflation. Many savers focus on avoiding short-term volatility while ignoring long-term erosion. Inflation does not feel dangerous because it acts slowly, but over time, it is one of the most destructive forces to idle capital. Consequence: after 5 years, small but noticeable loss in purchasing power. After 10 years, savings buy materially less than expected. After 20 years, a large portion of real value has disappeared. At 3% inflation, money loses roughly half its purchasing power over 24 years. A saver who avoids risk entirely accepts this loss by default. Mistake 3: waiting for more income before changing strategy. Many people believe the problem will solve itself once they earn more. In practice, higher income often increases fixed costs. The structure stays the same, just at a higher level. Consequence, after 5 years, lifestyle inflation absorbs raises. After 10 years, savings rate remains similar despite higher income. After 20 years, missed compounding cannot be recovered. This shows that income level is not the determining factor. Two people with the same salary can end up in completely different positions based on decisions. Mistake 4, keeping all capital liquid just in case. Liquidity feels comforting, but excess liquidity carries a cost. Money that is never assigned a long-term role never compounds. Consequence, after 5 years, opportunity cost begins to accumulate. After 10 years, the gap between potential and reality widens. After 20 years, lost growth outweighs any benefit of flexibility. Mistake 5, confusing discipline with progress. Discipline without direction creates effort, not results. Many savers work harder, cut more expenses, and delay more gratification without improving outcomes. The critical realization is this: the problem is not income. People at every income level fall into the saver's trap. The difference between stagnation and progress is not how much is earned, but how money is structured to function over time. Saving is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Without a decision to move capital from preservation to productivity, time becomes the enemy instead of the ally. In the next part, we will examine a practical, realistic solution: how to use saving correctly, how to transition out of the trap, and how to build a system that remains stable without relying on perfect timing or high risk. Escaping the saver's trap does not require extreme risk, perfect timing, or abandoning financial caution. It requires redefining the role of saving and placing it inside a broader, functional system. The solution is not save less, but stop treating saving as the end goal. The core principle is simple: saving protects you, investing moves you forward. Both are necessary, but they serve different purposes. Step 1: separate short-term safety from long-term growth. Savings should have a clearly defined role, covering emergencies and short-term needs. For most households, this means holding an amount equal to 6 months of essential expenses in cash or cash-like accounts. Once that buffer exists, additional cash does not increase safety in proportion to its size. It simply increases exposure to inflation. This step creates stability without over-accumulating idle capital. Step 2, assign every extra dollar a long-term job. Money beyond the safety buffer should not remain unassigned. Its role is growth. This does not require speculation. Broad, diversified investment vehicles, such as low-cost index funds, are designed to capture long-term economic growth without relying on individual company success. The logic is straightforward. Over long periods, productive assets tend to grow faster than inflation because they represent ownership in real economic activity. Cash does not. Step 3, use consistency instead of prediction. A stable system does not depend on market timing. Regular, automatic contributions reduce emotional decision-making and spread risk over time. By investing consistently, the system benefits from market fluctuations instead of being harmed by them. This approach lowers the risk of entering at the wrong time because entry is continuous. Step 4, limit risk through structure, not avoidance. Risk is often misunderstood as volatility. In reality, long-term risk is the failure to maintain purchasing power. By keeping savings for short-term needs and investing for long-term goals, risk is distributed instead of concentrated. A simple example illustrates this. Two individuals both save $500 per month. One keeps all of it in cash for 20 years. The other builds a 6-month emergency fund and then invests the remaining contributions. After 20 years, the second individual has significantly more real purchasing power, even if markets experienced volatility along the way. Why this system is stable: it does not rely on high returns. It does not require frequent decisions. It separates safety from growth. It works gradually, not aggressively. Most importantly, it adapts to real life. Income fluctuations, job changes, and economic cycles do not break the system because each component has a defined role. This approach also avoids the most common fear: what if I need the money? By design, short term needs are already covered. Long term capital is allowed to do its job without constant interruption. The saver's trap persists because people try to solve a long term problem with short term tools. This system corrects that mismatch. It does not promise rapid wealth, but it restores alignment between effort and outcome. In the final part, we will bring everything together into a clear framework, showing what changes after 1, 5, and 10 years, and what steps can be taken immediately to begin the transition. When everything is put together, the saver's trap becomes clear. The issue is not discipline, intelligence, or income level. It is a structural mismatch between short term tools and long term goals. Saving is designed to reduce immediate risk. Wealth requires a system that allows money to maintain and expand its purchasing power over time. A functional structure has three distinct layers. Layer 1: Stability. Cash exists to absorb shocks, not to build the future. A defined safety buffer, typically 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, creates breathing room. Beyond that point, additional cash does not meaningfully increase security. It increases exposure to inflation. Layer 2: Growth. Money that is not required for near-term stability must be allowed to grow. This does not mean chasing returns or speculating. It means participating in broad economic growth through diversified, low-cost investments. The purpose is not short-term profit, but long-term preservation of purchasing power. Layer 3: Process. The system works because it is automatic. Contributions happen on a schedule. Decisions are minimized. Emotional reactions are removed from day-to-day management. Over time, consistency matters more than precision. What changes over time? After 1 year, the main shift is clarity. There is a clear distinction between safety money and growth money. Financial stress decreases because short term needs are covered and long term capital has a defined role. Progress becomes measurable rather than emotional. After 5 years, the difference becomes structural. Growth assets begin to matter. The account balance no longer reflects only effort, but compounding. Financial decisions feel less urgent because the system is doing part of the work independently of income. After 10 years, the effect is visible in options. The saver is no longer fully dependent on continued high effort. Career changes, reduced hours, or unexpected expenses are manageable without dismantling the entire plan. The system absorbs shocks instead of amplifying them. What should be done now? Calculate essential monthly expenses and define a realistic safety buffer. Stop adding excess cash beyond that buffer. Redirect new savings into long-term growth assets using automatic contributions. Keep the system simple and repeatable. Complexity increases mistakes, not returns. Review the structure periodically, not constantly. The financial mistake many people make is assuming that effort alone guarantees results. Saving more feels responsible, but responsibility without direction produces stagnation. Time does not reward caution by default. It rewards alignment. The goal is not to abandon saving, but to place it in the correct position. Saving protects the present. A system protects the future. This approach does not promise fast wealth or eliminate uncertainty. What it does provide is something more valuable: a financial structure where effort compounds instead of eroding, and where time becomes an ally rather than a silent cost. That is the difference between saving money and building a future.